Ever feel like the market's constantly throwing you curveballs?
Yeah.
Like just when you think you figured it out,
Right, yeah.
everything changes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what today's deep dive is all about. We're exploring this whole idea of adaptability in trading, becoming kind of a trading chameleon.
Yeah.
So we can thrive in these ever-changing conditions.
Yeah.
And to help us navigate this, we're diving into some awesome insights from Dr. Brett Steenbarger's book, Trading Psychology 2.0.
It's a great book.
It's packed with really actionable stuff. But, Dr. Steenbarger, he doesn't really sugarcoat it.
Well, he doesn't.
He comes right out and says that the biggest obstacle for most traders, it's not about lacking a good strategy.
It's true.
It's about this inability to adapt.
It's the inability to adapt. That's what he says.
Mhm.
The single greatest barrier to success is a lack of adaptation.
It's so true. And you know what? That actually reminds me of this amazing little Italian restaurant downtown, Emil's. They make incredible pasta. Seriously legendary.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. They've been around for almost 100 years.
Wow.
And they've managed to stay relevant because they adapt. They're constantly evolving their menu, embracing new culinary trends.
Oh, absolutely.
Imagine if they hadn't.
Right.
They'd be like this, I don't know, dusty old museum instead of this bustling, hotspot.
It makes you wonder how many other places have failed
I know.
because they couldn't adapt.
Right, because they didn't have that adaptability.
Which is so important.
Exactly. And that's kind of Dr. Steenbarger's point, right?
Yeah.
Just like a restaurant has to keep up with changing tastes,
Absolutely.
traders need to adapt to these constantly shifting market conditions. He uses a great analogy in the book. He calls it the
zoo analogy.
zoo analogy.
Yeah.
That's it. So picture this. A trader finds a strategy that works. They get comfortable. They build up this little routine, this comfort zone. They're kind of like an animal, safe and sound in their zoo enclosure.
Right.
You're comfortable there.
You're comfortable. You've got your routine down. You're making consistent, gains. It feels good.
Right, but I'm sensing that's where the trouble starts.
Exactly. See, here's the thing about zoos.
Okay.
They're not exactly a recipe for, growth, are they? They're predictable, controlled, and markets.
Yeah.
Markets are anything but. They're more like a jungle. Right?
Yeah. Oh, I like that.
Wild.
Unpredictable.
Unpredictable. And they're constantly evolving.
And if you're stuck in that zoo cage mentality,
Yeah.
you become really vulnerable.
Absolutely. When the market changes, and it always does,
Always.
those traders, they get caught off guard.
So how do we break free from that? Because it's got to be more than just knowing that change is going to happen, right?
It is. It's about embracing that change.
Embracing it. And I love that Dr. Steenbarger really emphasizes the power of what he calls small wins.
Yes.
It's this idea that small, gradual improvements can actually help us overcome that resistance to change.
Absolutely. And it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Think about it. If you try to change everything at once, it can be overwhelming.
It's too much.
Too much. But if you focus on achieving small, manageable wins,
Yeah.
it builds momentum.
It's like dipping your toes in the water before diving into the deep end, right?
Exactly. You get used to the feeling.
Yeah.
You get comfortable with the process of adapting, and that makes those bigger leaps when you have to make them
Right.
way less scary.
It's like you build up that confidence with each little step.
Exactly. And each small win reinforces the idea that change can be positive,
Yeah.
that it can lead to better outcomes. And that shift in mindset,
Yeah.
that's crucial for traders to thrive in this ever-evolving market landscape. Instead of viewing change as something to be afraid of, it becomes an opportunity for growth and improvement.
And for, ultimately, achieving those bigger goals.
Precisely. It all starts with those small wins.
It's interesting how much we focus on our weaknesses in trading.
Yeah.
What we're doing wrong, where we're messing up.
Absolutely.
But Dr. Steenbarger, he kind of flips the script, right?
He does. He really emphasizes the importance of building on your strengths as a trader.
Instead of just trying to fix all the weaknesses.
Exactly. Because, we all have our own unique strengths
Yeah.
and weaknesses, and trying to be good at everything.
Right.
It's a recipe for frustration.
It is.
He actually tells this great story about a student who was really struggling with reading, but he had this incredible memory, like a tape recorder.
Wow.
He could remember anything he heard.
So what do? They just let him listen to the material instead of reading it.
Exactly. They shifted the focus from his weakness, which was reading, to his strength, which was his auditory learning.
That's brilliant.
And it made all the difference.
It makes you wonder, how many traders out there are like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole?
Right.
Like trying to force themselves to trade a certain way because that's they think they should be doing.
Instead of leaning into what comes naturally to them.
Exactly. So what's the takeaway? Like, how do we actually figure out our strengths and then use them to our advantage?
Well, it starts with self-awareness, right? Like really taking the time to understand what you're good at and
Mm,
what you enjoy. Maybe you're not a technical analysis whiz,
right.
but you have an incredible knack for reading market sentiment. Or maybe you're not so great with complex options strategies, but you excel at identifying long-term value investments.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's about finding that sweet spot where your strengths intersect with market opportunities.
Okay. I like that. Finding that sweet spot.
Yeah, and I'm reminded of this other example Dr. Steenbarger shared about a trader named Charles. Charles was going through a rough patch,
Yeah.
just not seeing the results he wanted. And it turned out his real strength wasn't in, analyzing charts in isolation.
Right.
It was in reading people.
Interesting.
He had this incredible knack for gauging sentiment,
Oh.
picking up on those subtle cues that others might miss.
So he was what? He was trying to trade completely on his own, like in a bubble?
Yes, exactly. And he was miserable. It wasn't until he started building a team, surrounding himself with people who complemented his strengths, that he started to see real progress.
That's like that saying, right? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Exactly. Sometimes the key to unlocking our full potential is recognizing that we don't have to do it all alone.
So true. And that actually reminds me of something I've been trying to do more of.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to get really bogged down in the details, over analyzing everything.
Oh, I know the feeling.
But I have this friend, right? He's a real big picture thinker.
Okay.
And whenever I start to spiral, I'll bounce ideas off of him.
Yeah,
And it helps so much just having that different perspective.
absolutely. It's a good reminder that trading doesn't have to be this solitary pursuit.
Right, right.
And sometimes the key to unlocking our full potential is surrounding ourselves with the right people. But it's not just about finding the right people,
Right.
it's also about having the courage to be different.
What do you mean?
Well, it's easy to fall into the trap of groupthink in trading, especially with social media and
Oh,
everything.
yeah. Everyone's a trading guru these days.
Right. But the truth is, the most profitable opportunities are often found in those less crowded trades, the ones that require a different perspective to spot. It's like that Robert Frost quote. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by. And that has made all the difference.
I love that quote.
Uh-huh.
So how do we avoid getting caught up in the groupthink and following the herd?
Well, Dr. Steenbarger tells this great story about a trader named Eileen. She was part of this group of traders, and they were all convinced that a particular stock was going to tank.
Okay.
Everyone was shorting it. It seemed like a surefire bet.
But Eileen wasn't so sure.
Now, she started noticing something interesting. Despite the overwhelming bearish sentiment, the stock kept bouncing back.
Oh, so her initial trades, the ones based on the group's consensus, they actually lost money.
They did. But because Eileen was thinking independently, she was able to spot an opportunity that the others had missed. She realized that the crowd was wrong, and she was able to capitalize on that insight by taking a contrarian position.
So she actually made money by going against the grain.
Exactly, and that's the power of independent thinking, right?
So-
It allows you to see the market from a different angle, to spot those hidden opportunities.
It's like instead of just following the map everyone else is using, she went out and explored the territory herself.
Exactly. And that's what Dr. Steenbarger encourages us to do, to view trading not just as a game of numbers and charts and indicators, but as a creative pursuit.
Ooh, I like that. A creative pursuit. It's like an artist approaching a blank canvas, right? They bring their unique vision, their own style, their own creative spark.
Precisely. And in trading, that means being willing to experiment, to think outside the box, to find your own unique approach that aligns with your strengths and your personality.
So it's not just about following the rules, it's about finding your own rhythm, your own way of expressing yourself in the market.
Exactly. And that takes courage, right? To be different, to go against the grain.
It does. But the rewards can be huge if you're willing to put in the work
Yeah.
and trust your own instincts. So we've talked about adapting to change, building on our strengths, cultivating our own unique perspective. But how do we translate all this into, consistent results? How do we bridge that gap between knowing what to do and actually doing it day in and day out.
That's where best processes come into play.
Best processes. Okay, what's that all about?
So it's not enough to just understand the concepts, right? Like, we can read all the books, attend all the seminars,
Right.
but if we don't have a way to actually implement that knowledge consistently,
Yeah.
it's not going to do us much good.
Mhm.
Think of it like having all the ingredients for a gourmet meal.
Okay, I like this analogy.
You've got your fresh vegetables, your high-quality meats, your exotic spices.
I'm getting hungry just thinking about it.
Me too.
Huh.
But if you don't have a recipe, a set of instructions to follow,
Right.
you're probably not going to end up with a very appetizing meal.
Probably going to be a disaster, more like it.
Exactly. And our trading recipes are our best processes. They provide the structure, the framework that allows us to execute our best practices consistently, even when the pressure is on.
So it's about having a plan, a system, a set of rules to follow that takes the emotionality out of it.
Precisely. Dr. Steenbarger talks about this trader he worked with who had a deep understanding of the market, like really knew his stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But he struggled to execute his trades effectively.
Right. What was holding him back?
He was relying too much on intuition and making impulsive decisions in the heat of the moment. He knew what he should be doing, but he wasn't consistently doing it.
So how did he overcome that?
He developed a structured process for identifying and acting on valid trade setups. He created a step-by-step process that he could follow, which helped him to remove the emotion from his decision-making and approach trading with greater objectivity and discipline.
And that made a difference.
Oh, a huge difference. His performance improved dramatically once he had a reliable process in place.
That's interesting because I think that's something a lot of traders struggle with.
Yeah.
That impulsivity, that emotional reactivity.
It's a common trap, for sure, but having a structured process in place can really help.
It's like having that internal compass, right? It keeps you on track even when the seas get rough.
Exactly. Our best processes act as a guide, a roadmap to help us navigate the inevitable ups and downs of the market.
So it's not just about having a plan for our trades, it's about having a plan for our emotional well-being as traders too, right?
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more. So it's like we need a best process for our trading psychology too.
Exactly. It's not just about managing our trades, it's about managing ourselves.
And this is where I think Dr. Steenbarger's book gets really powerful
I agree.
because he doesn't just talk about these concepts in a vacuum.
Right.
He shares stories of real traders who've actually put these ideas into practice.
Yeah, and it's so much more relatable that way, right?
Absolutely. Like there's this one story about a trader named Calvin who was honestly in a really bad place.
Oh, yeah, I remember
He
Calvin.
was losing money, he was sleep deprived, totally burnt out.
Yeah, he was struggling.
And I think a lot of us can relate to that, right?
Definitely. Those periods of drawdown can be brutal.
They can really mess with your head.
Yeah, it's easy to get stuck in that negative spiral.
So what did Calvin do? How did he turn things around?
Well, it might sound kind of basic, but it started with sleep.
Sleep? Really?
Yeah, he realized he'd been running on fumes for weeks, like surviving on caffeine and adrenaline.
Oh, I've been there.
Right, and he knew it was taking a toll, so he made a conscious decision to prioritize sleep.
Just like that.
Well, it wasn't easy at first, but he committed to it. And guess what? That one change had this ripple effect on his entire trading approach.
You know, it's amazing how much of a difference a good night's sleep can make.
Right, you feel sharper, you're more patient, you make better decisions.
Totally. So Calvin starts sleeping better, and then what?
Well, with more energy and a clearer mind, he was able to approach the market with this renewed sense of focus.
Okay.
He wasn't making those impulsive trades anymore, the ones driven by fatigue or frustration.
Right.
He was able to stick to his plan, manage his risk, and ultimately his trading performance started to improve.
See, that's what I'm talking about. That direct link between our well-being and our results.
It's huge.
Right.
We can have the best trading strategy in the world, but if we're running on empty,
It's not going to matter.
exactly. And that takes us back to those best processes we were talking about.
Right.
Just like we create processes for analyzing the market and managing our trades, we need to develop processes for managing our energy, our emotions, our overall well-being.
So it's about more than just, hitting the gym a few times a week or grabbing a salad for lunch.
It is. It's about taking a holistic view.
Okay, I like that. Holistic. It's all connected.
Exactly. Dr. Steenbarger talks about cultivating gratitude, nurturing our relationships outside of trading, finding activities that bring us joy and fulfillment.
It's about having a life.
Yes. Because trading can be all-consuming if we let it.
Oh, tell me about it. It's easy to get so caught up in the charts, the news, the constant flow of information that we forget to take care of ourselves.
And that's a recipe for burnout.
Big time. We become so fixated on the destination, like making a certain amount of money,
Right, that we forget to enjoy the journey.
which, let's be honest, the journey is most of it.
It really is. Trading should be challenging, but it should also be engaging and ultimately rewarding.
And not just financially.
Exactly, it's about finding that balance, right?
Yes. Pushing ourselves to achieve our trading goals while also prioritizing our well-being and living a fulfilling life outside the markets. Because at the end of the day, isn't that what it's all about?
What's that?
Becoming the best versions of ourselves, both as traders and as human beings.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And that's what I appreciate so much about Dr. Steenbarger's work. He gets it. He understands that trading success isn't just about the numbers in our account. Right. It's about personal growth. It's about becoming more resilient, more adaptable, more fully ourselves.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a little challenge, something to think about.
I like it. What's the challenge?
This week, I challenge you to identify one concrete action you can take to improve your own best processes.
Okay, I'm listening.
Could be anything. Maybe it's setting aside dedicated time for pre-market analysis,
Great one.
or creating a structured routine for managing your trading emotions. Or maybe it's as simple as committing to getting an extra hour of sleep each night.
All great examples.
Remember, small changes, consistently applied, can lead to remarkable transformations over time.
It's about progress, not perfection.
Exactly. Trading's a journey, not a destination. And the most successful traders are those who embrace that journey with a commitment to continuous learning, adaptation, and self-improvement.
Couldn't agree more. Trading is a fantastic vehicle for self-discovery.
It really is. Well, on that note, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of trading psychology and adaptability.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
And to our listeners, we'll catch you next time for another exploration of the fascinating forces that shape our trading journeys.